Dari, hello. It's the end of September 2021 and this is a video to investigate whether it's possible to replace your desktop server or desk side server with a laptop replacement. And the background is that obviously if you're doing any kind of CPU intensive work and if you stay in one place at one time, the most cost efficient computer system to buy is a desktop, not a laptop. So you can pick a Windows architecture or you can pick an Apple architecture, but it's much more cost effective to buy a non-laptop based solution. You'll get a lot more bang for your buck. In particular, mobile CPU processors are nowhere near as powerful as desktop CPUs. Having said that, in the future, it might be that as a family we are travelling a lot, or we may not be in the UK, a combination of those two factors. So we're looking into, is it possible to run a server system on your laptop, and are there any pros and cons or gotchas that are going to stop you doing that? So in front of you, what you see is the large 40-inch screen, which is part of the normal desktop setup, the Lenovo laptop, which is driving at 4K resolution via this HDMI output to the desktop screen, a Logitech keyboard, fancy keyboard, again stolen from a desktop system, and my very no-branded, lovely and quiet mouse, which is to be seen eventually if I get it on the screen. So that's the setup. I'm going to continue with the video just looking at the actual detail of what is working, what isn't working from the laptop perspective. And the short answer is it's not working. But keep watching. So in part 2 of this video, we're going to actually look at how practical it is to actually run a number of operating systems under virtualization on the new Lenovo laptop. So remember that the overall plan was to perhaps use the laptop as a workstation par excellence, and instead of using a desktop, temporarily use the laptop as a workstation. And as I said before, there are some issues. So let's look at the current system. You know, it's a 5700U powered laptop. It's got 16 cores, 8 CPUs, 16 cores. You think that would be enough for everyone? Here we are. 16 logical processors. Lots of memory, lots of disk. And the disk is operating at 4,000 megabytes per second peak. So everything is fine. However, let's first of all go to a Windows 2022 server. Now, if you recall from a previous video, installing this natively on this laptop just doesn't work. And why doesn't it work? The reason is because the touchpad, the killer is that the touchpad driver doesn't work. And going into some huge amount of technical detail, it seems that Windows server team have either on purpose or negligently decided not to make that driver work. Anyway, it works absolutely fine under virtualization. So here is 2022 server. It's running absolutely splendidly under virtualization. I've even got Windows subsystem for Linux working inside the virtualized 2022 server. So that's quite something. That needs extra levels of cascaded translation tables under the virtual machine, and that's all working. So that's fantastic. Let's just prove that. I can do a let's see if I can do a sudo bash and we're in as root at get update. Everything is working at just tremendously fast speed. You wouldn't be able to tell the difference of this server working to an actual server. So actually a virtualized Windows 2022 server is working absolutely fine on this system. We've not given it that many resources, but it's working well. So but on the other hand, it can't work natively on this laptop as I would have liked it to, because of the touchpad driver just doesn't work. If we contrast with that, so let's just pause that virtual machine. You'll see how quickly this can just be it's paused instantly. So let's go to the macOS virtualization instead. Now, as a proof of concept, I've installed macOS. It's currently suspended, and you can hear my microphone clearly. Everything is working fine. I'll just show you the fact that you have to, on an AMD platform, jump through even more hoops than on an Intel platform. In particular, you need to add these lines that are highlighted into your VMX file. So you all may know that to get VMware working, you've got to put back the functionality that I presume Apple asked them to take out of VMware. So there are programs to put that functionality back in, and then you can specify macOS as a client in the same way that you can specify Windows Server. And that works fine under an Intel CPU. However, under an AMD CPU, it will just crash. And you need the special secret source here to set the CPU registers up for the first two CPUs. Subsequent to that, you can use more processors. So if we see the actual configuration here, we're actually using 8 processors, we're using 10 gigs of memory, and we're using the hard drive. Now I'm going to resume the Big Sur operating system, and my voice may stop working, because when that happens, the whole system comes to a terrible halt, and it's basically, not only is the virtualization unusable, but the whole of the computer that's doing the virtualization, my lovely laptop, becomes totally unusable. Let's give it a go. Resume. I've cut down the memory to only 16 gigabytes. Oh, in fact, sorry, I think 10 gigabytes on this iteration. Okay, so let's try and load system preferences. Clicking, double clicking, let me just click to get focus. Double click now. This is in real time, no editing. Still starting up. Still starting. Started. It's so unusable, I can't even close it. Let's try to close that window. Yeah. Let's try and load Google Chrome. Google Chrome is already loaded, actually. Let's try and just get it to paint on the screen. Okay, let me try and go to a web page. Let's try and go to the... You see what I mean? It's just... Let's go to Google News. I've already preloaded these pages so that I don't start screaming. Not loaded yet. It's loading. Still loading. Still loading. Let's try and look at this article from BBC News. Okay, that's paused. So when that virtual machine is paused, the system is again usable. Let's just look at the CPU. So whilst that was happening, you can see the CPU was at 100%. We're now back down to 30. You can see that CPU curve is back down to 20%. and it'll be soon much less than that. So the takeaway is that macOS virtualization under VMware, the latest release 16, it just doesn't work at all. It works less well on an AMD platform than on an Intel platform, but of course an AMD platform is vastly more powerful per bang for buck than the Intel equivalent these days. Okay, so macOS virtualization just doesn't work. And by the way, I've followed all the tweaks, like don't trim pages and all sorts of other things. Let me show you some of the other gotchas which are standing in the way of using this as a workstation reboot. So here is the Windows WSL. That's working fine. Let's just do an apt. So this is Windows Subsystem for Linux version 2. We're running Windows 11 Enterprise native on this Lenovo system as the base. On top of that we have the VMware 16, which was running the two operating systems. Let's do apt get. Let's do upgrade. Let's see what happens here. Oh yeah, I upgraded it last night. Apt get install. I think I've installed Corn Shell. Yeah, that's everything's installed now. Apt get auto remove. Yeah, everything is absolutely fine. I can just say that WSL works at lightning speed. On WSL version 2, everything will come to a halt once the macOS client is running. So you just cannot run anything whilst that client is running. Now, I want to point out that here's the Windows Features tab, which is quite difficult to get to, by the way. But it is possible to get to this on a Windows 11 system. And in fact, you need to get to it. In order to switch on WSL and have it work, you need both Virtual Machine Platform and Windows Hypervisor Platform installed. So you need both of these to be installed, because if you don't, then WSL will not work. And I've tried removing absolutely everything that wasn't required for my standard build. And of course, you can remove both of these and then still have VMware work. So notice that Hyper-V here is not installed, but these two are needed for WSL, the Virtual Machine and Windows Hypervisor Platform. If you didn't run WSL and only wanted to run macOS, again as a proof of concept obviously, then it would work a lot better. I did test it, it does work better. You still of course need to, on an AMD platform, put this workaround in, but it does at least respond to your keyboard presses. With these two Virtual Machine and Hypervisor installed, you can lag the keyboard as you type. You can't even type into the keyboard. So I guess what I'm saying is that from a running other clients perspective, this laptop is an absolute screamer. It's performing so well under WSL, Windows Subsystem for Linux, I can't imagine. It runs under VMware absolutely everything perfectly except for macOS. So it'll run Linux, Server 2022, it runs Ubuntu, it runs anything you can possibly imagine. Absolutely wonderful. So from that, and it supports multiple screens, and so it basically does almost everything perfectly, but it can't also include macOS. So, and it can't run Windows Server 2022 natively, which is what I originally had thought I was going to do. So there's a couple of gotchas, but basically it's a very good product. As long as you don't want to run macOS as one of your clients, it's still a winner, and I highly recommend it. Thanks for watching.